Hi, and welcome to this series of videos on doing Max MSP with Java. So what are we going to do? Okay, I'm opening up Max, and this series of videos is designed for people who already know Max. So if you don't know Max already, please study Max and then come back here when you are familiar with the concept of how Max works. So just as a quick revision, if we have objects inside Max, we can make, for example, bang buttons. We can connect the bang button, for example, to an LED, and if we click the bang button, then something travels down the line. A bang message travels down the line and makes the LED flash. Bringing this up over here, then if we make a print box, sending the bang into the print box would also print it out on the console. Okay, and inside Max MSP there are a very large number of very useful objects that we can connect up in this way and make patches that do things extremely interesting from a musical and other point of view. So what are we going to do here? Fundamentally, if we're programming Java in Max MSP, then the way I'm showing you here is that we're going to make new custom boxes that we haven't seen before. For example, if I make a new box called MXJ, and we'll mention why MXJ later on, hello world, then if we do that, it complains, could not load class hello world. And that means that that object does not exist. So, how can we make it so that object starts working and does something interesting? Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another object. And this object is an MXJ quickie and then hello world. What is this object doing? Well, what it's doing is that MXJ means we're running a Max Java object, and Quickie is one that's already built in for us. So what this means, I'll just get rid of that extra console. What this means is that it's going to bring up an editor, ready and waiting to edit a new type of object, which is going to be a hello world object, which is going to make this one down here work. We can make the editor appear on the screen by sending it a bang. So if I connect up a bang button, go out of edit mode, and send a bang, then I wait for a bit and an editor appears. This editor is then going to write code, or allow us to write code, which will allow us to make this new object down here that we want. Now, several things. If you're learning Java for the first time, and this series of videos is designed for people who are learning Java for the first time, then don't look at this and get all confused. Let's just focus in on the bits we need to know for now. So all of this here, we're only going to focus in on this bit here, which says public void bang. Okay, and that's where we're going to focus today. But the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a sort of an environment you can easily work in. You can see I'm working on a Macintosh. Of course, Max and Max Java will run on other computers as well. Typically with the Macintosh, your Java is set up ahead of time, and you don't need to install anything special to have Java all ready to use. On Windows, you may need to install what's called the Java Development Kit for you to be able to use Java. Okay, we have here two things that need to be saved. We have both the patch, and we can continue without saving the patch for a while. But if we're going to do Java, it's the easiest way I know of is we save the patch in a place, then we save this text file in a place. At the moment, you can see it's got a file name which is right inside my applications max apps contents resources 74 Java classes hello world.java. That's where this file is going to be saved. I don't want to do that because that's saving this new Java program I've got right in the middle of my installation of Max, and this can make things confusing. There's already a whole lot of .java files in there already. And if I'm going to reinstall a new version of Max, then of course my old Java may have disappeared. So I'm going to do what I think is the easiest way of working with Java in Max. I'm first going to take my patch, I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it on the desktop. It doesn't need to be saved on the desktop, but it's going to work fine on the desktop. So I'm going to call this exercise1.maxpat, and there it appears on my desktop. Once I've got the patch saved on the desktop, I can then save the code on the desktop as well. Okay, and it's saying there's all sorts of problems there, so we can't save. Don't worry about that, just save it on the desktop and it will be fine. Always keep the name helloworld.java. You see there's a public class hello world there. This name and that name have to match. So don't change the name to something else here, just save it with the name that it gives you. Okay? Now, I've got both my .maxpad here and my .java file here, but I'm not quite ready to go. I can't yet make this object called mxj hello world. .java is actually a text file. This is actually, even though it's all nicely colored, a plain text file. The computer can't run or use the plain text file directly. I've got to change it into another form called a class file before my computer is able to use it inside MaxMSP. How do I change it from this text form into a class file? I bring up the Java menu, open the compile window, and I hit compile. Note here that I've got several interesting things. All of these things should be correct. That should be where on my disk my file is. This should be where the Java compiler is. If the Java compiler doesn't work, and it says no such compiler, then what you need to do is find the javac on your computer, or the javac.exe if you're on Windows, and make sure that you've got the correct full address for it here. This is where I'm going to put my .class file and just keep it the same as there. And don't worry too much about the class file at the moment. Hopefully it works. Okay, if not, you need a bit more help. But hopefully it'll all be set up to work properly. So, hit compile, and it goes green, which means there's 0 errors, and there's my .class file. So there's the .java file, which is what I can read. It's a plain text file. If we open it in a plain text editor, we'll see that it's just plain text. This is the .class file, which, if you open it in a plain text file editor, will look like a whole lot of rubbish. But the computer understands it, and it means now that because I have my patch and the .class file stored in the same directory, I've done it on the desktop so we can see it, then now I can reload and make an mxj hello world. Okay, I can of course make a brand new one. And now note it doesn't go brown, it doesn't give an error. Or I can reload the one I've got by changing the name. Typically I put a space into the name, backspace to get the space out, and that reloads the object as well. Typically we reload objects because that is the fastest way of doing it. Okay, and now my object does something. I can connect a bang button up to my object, and I press on the bang button and absolutely nothing happens. Okay, why is nothing happening? Well, fundamentally, there are some things here which happen automatically, which is very convenient for us. If we send a bang message to this object, then it goes and looks for a method, and the method is a bit of packaged up code called public void bang. The syntax has to be correct. It has to have the word public spelled correctly. We put a void there for bang. There are reasons why we put some different things later on. Let's leave it for now. Let's keep it simple. Then there's the name bang. It's got an open and close bracket and then an open and close brace. The braces are, I often call them squiggly brackets. They are one of the types of brackets or braces you will find on your computer keyboard, and you need to get these all right. I'll put something in deliberately wrong. I'll just put in XXX. Okay, I have to write my code that I'm going to have run when someone clicks on the bang button and sends the message to my object inside here. But here I've deliberately made an error. Let's try and compile that and change it into the computer readable .class file and see what it does. And it suddenly says, oh, there's a problem. Now, people who learn coding inside MaxMSP sometimes don't really take much notice of this. They just say there's a problem. This will actually tell you, amongst all the blue stuff, exactly where the problem occurred at the beginning of the XXXXX, and it's got an error, and the error says not a statement. It also says the line, and if I'm careful enough with my double clicking, it takes me straight to the line where the error is. What I've got to do is that I've got to put between these two braces the code that I want to happen if someone clicks on a bang button and sends that bang message to my object. One command that I have is called the post command. And what the post command does is it's got the name post. I'm going to show you some ways in which that can go wrong later on. It has a message inside the brackets, and that message is then going to go into this console window. The syntax has to be exact. We need post, we need an open bracket, we need the message, which can be more complicated than this. We need a close bracket and then a semicolon. If I accidentally leave the semicolon off and try and turn it into my computer readable class file, then it actually says an error. It says the errors occurred on line 25, and it said semicolon expected and pointed exactly where the missing semicolon is. This is lucky because it's telling you exactly where the error is, so you can go and fix it easily. I will point out that as your coding becomes more sophisticated, you won't always get an error message which is that easily understood and that easily followed, and sometimes it tries to guess what the problem is and possibly gets it wrong. But I deliberately, in this case, chose the missing semicolon because I knew it would get it right. I go to line 25, I can go Edit, go to Line, and then select 25. That'll get me to the line where the error is. And also in here, if I click, it takes me straight to line 25. I've got to be careful not, for example, just to click on the 5. Okay. If I just click on the 5 by accident, it will take me to line 5, which isn't where the error is. I'm now going to put a semicolon there, which corrects the error, the grammar error in my program, in my code, and now compile. Okay. Every time I compile, I have to remember to reload, which loads in the new version of my code. So I edit the object, put in a space, hit backspace, and that's reloaded it. I hit the bang button, and it said someone clicked the bang button. We now have code that's working. We've made a custom object. All it does is post someone click the bang button, okay, into the console window. But it is a new object. It does something. And of course, we develop from here. We keep on adding more and more things that we can do. For example, I could add a second post statement. And I'm even going to add a third one. Okay, and there's something I want to talk about with the fact that I have 3 post statements. Let's deliberately do an error. So I'm going to forget to compile. I won't compile, and I'll try and load in the object. I hit the bang button, and it just does the old thing, only prints out 1 line. That's because I forgot to compile. If I compile, but forget to reload, then again, it just does the old thing. I've got to both compile and reload the object, and then it does the new thing. I can clear the console. You can see that 3 lines come out. Look carefully at the lines. The lines are in the same order that they are done here. And that's because if we're running this code in between these braces, this is one statement or command to the computer, this is another statement or command to the computer, and this is another statement or command to the computer. If it has 3 of them in a row like this, or 3 of them in a column, then it does the first one first, the second one second, and the third one third. I think you'll understand that that's probably the simplest way we can have it, that if you have multiple statements, run the first one first, the second one second, and the third one third. And also they are reliable. They run the same, they are reliable. They run the same way every single time. So they don't ever change the order in which they come out or anything like that. Typically computer languages are written to be as simple and as logical as possible. They follow very, very simple rules. And one simple rule is, if you have just a list of statements like this, it runs the first one first, the second one second, and the third one third. There's no magic, there's no uncertainty, just simple. Learning to code, and I hope that if you're starting to watch this video, that you'll watch my other videos and learn how to code in a more sophisticated way and learn lots of new things. It's good to remember that there are simple rules by which things happen, and if we understand those simple rules, then we can easily predict what our program is going to do. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to write some new post statements. And I can't think of anything to write. If I look at this code, because I understand the logic by which it works, and I understand what the statements do, I can look at it and I can predict what's going to come out here. If this was a live class, I'm going to ask people to tell me, what do you think is going to come out? I look at it, I see there are two post statements, one after the other. It's going to run the first one first, the second one second. What does the post statement do? It posts out a message. Here is the message into the console. So both of these messages will appear in the console if somebody sends me a bang. And they'll be in the order 1, 2, buckle my shoe, and then little red hen. Let's compile. Let's reload. And let's hit the bang button. And what I predicted is exactly what comes out. It's good if you can predict what's going to happen, and it actually happens, because it shows understanding, and understanding is what we need. Just at the end of this video, I'm just going to add a few things. Pointers. First off, post has to be spelled correctly. Let's try compiling. If I've got is Joost, and it says error, cannot find symbol is Joost. It doesn't know that. So, it's on line 25, double click on 25, I can fix that. If I put uppercase, like let's make them all uppercase, then will that work? In the language Java, which is the one being covered in this series of videos, upper and lowercase matters. So you've got to remember that. I will click on the 25 to go straight to my error, and I'll then change it to be lowercase. I need to have the matching bracket. So let's compile again. And it says this, in this case, it's been a very helpful error, line 25. Closing bracket is expected, and that's exactly where it should be. So in this case, it's got it right. But now let's do something a bit more challenging. I'm going to forget these quotes. So what happens if I don't put the quotes there? The quotes show that this is a bit of text. I want to be treated as a bit of text. If I don't put the quotes around it, it treats it as if it's computer code, and it tries to work out what I'm telling it to do. So let's see what happens if we compile that. And it gets it all wrong, and there's all sorts of errors now. And it actually says the first one that bracket is expected. Okay, it's trying to guess what the problem is, and it's too confused by what I've written. It thinks that that's something different, what it actually is, and therefore it hasn't found the error. It still told us what line the error is, so we've got to look at it and work out what the problem is. If I put one quote but don't put the closing one, it won't like that as well. And in this case, it's unclosed string literal. String means text, literal means a strict bit of text that means what it shows on the tin. And unclosed means that I've started some double quotes and I never finished them. So let's put the double quotes in. That's now fixed the problem. Hit compile, and now it works, and now I can reload, and so on. Just to sum up for this video, what I've shown you here, we didn't make an object that did very much, and other videos in this series are going to do more, of course. But this process is something to get used to make sure all the steps work. That, for example, if you run Windows, you have the Java runtime, the Java development kit installed, so you can compile. Other things are set up. That you remember to save your patch, save your classes in the same directory. Doesn't need to be on the desktop, as long as they're all in the same place. And be able to go through the process of compiling, reloading, etc. That's quite useful stuff, and it looks like we're not doing much. There's a fair amount of stuff there to get used to, so I do recommend that before you go on to the next video, which I hope you will, that you practice this a bit and get fluent at it, and just put different things in the post statements. Okay, so let's stop there. Thank you very much. I hope to see you in the next video.